So we can call the meeting to order. We are now live streaming. Appreciate it. I'm sorry that some of you were like late, so we have to start at 5:40 instead of 5:30. No, actually, for those of you who may be joining us as live streaming, I was a little tardy and I apologize. But we are now in session. Tonight, we have in Ways and Means, we are looking at the committees or the departments that report to Ways and Means. And then we will be considering line suggestions for the budget for 2022. Following this, we have a special legislative meeting to set the date and time for a public hearing. So that's the information agenda for tonight. So I don't think there are minutes to approve or.
No, but I forgot to put on the agenda, the presentation by Jenny. Do you recall that?
I do, and I forgot.
Okay. All right, so.
I asked Jenny.
And she is on.
In Delicato to give a very short presentation on assessment, taxing, and so on, because it's been a point of confusion, I think, for all of us, and it has a direct impact on budgetary stuff. So thank you, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
So is Jenny on?
She is on.
Okay, good.
I am on.
Thank you, and forgive me for not remembering. This is why we have Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. So I was asked to take a look at what the impact of a flat tax levy would be on the tax rate. So we'll start off just with what the tax rate is, and that's the tax levy divided by the taxable value times 1,000. So if you look at the county-wide tax rate, that's the tax levy divided by full value times 1,000. So if your tax levy remains flat from year to year, which in this example it does, if you look at the third block over, you know, our tax levy from 2021 to 2022, no change, 0%. But our full value has increased. So that means that our overall countywide tax rate has decreased. So from my prior slide, I said that the tax rate is the tax levy divided by the taxable value. Here we're dividing by full value. So let's dig into what full value is and why we're using that in the countywide calculation. So your full value is your taxable value divided by your equalization rate, where your equalization rate is New York State's measure of a municipality's level of assessment. So how close the assessed value compares to the market value. If your assessed value and your market value are both on par with one another, you'd have an equalization rate of 1.0. As your market value increases over the assessed value, your equalization rate will decrease. So it'll be below 1, which ends up increasing your full value over what your taxable value is. So your full value will be greater than your taxable value if your equalization rate is less than 1. So when they get really out of line, towns will do reevaluations so that they can bring the assessed values back in line with the market values. So this past year, we had 3 towns do that: Conquest, Genoa, and Springport. They all had revals. We use the full value to calculate the county-wide tax rate because it basically brings all of the values in line so they're equitable with one another. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, so how the county tax rate is determined for municipalities. So the county tax levy is apportioned to each town based on the percentage of full value for that municipality compared to the county's full value. So basically you're breaking apart that levy based on the full value percentage. And then the county tax rate for the municipality is their share of the levy divided by the municipality's taxable value, not their full value, times 1,000. So your county tax rate will vary by municipality. For the municipalities that have had a decrease in their EEC rate, they're the ones that are actually going to see an increase in their tax rate. So here I've taken just a brief little snippet from the municipality tax rate calculation table. I did send Amanda the full table if you guys wanted to, see all of the towns. But you'll see, like, for Cato, that there's an actual increase year over year in the tax rate of a 0.5%, which is because their equalization rate decreased from year to year. Which, Amanda, if you go to the next slide, I do also have a table out there that shows, the big changes in equalization rates and how that's played into percent change year over year. So are there any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Latimer.
Jenny, just for the room, our tax rate has gone down for the county for the last 3 years.
Let me take a look.
But more importantly, like
Yes.
the town of Senate has a zero tax rate, and let's say Lowe's is located there, they pay absolutely zero town tax, and let's say Walmart, which is in the city, right next door, they pay $175,000 in city taxes for property tax, not the school tax, not anything else. And last week I jokingly brought up the fact that it should be a countywide assessment versus individual assessments on towns. I know that you're brand new over there, but hopefully we can get to that to make it equal for everybody. I know that there was a large sale on Grand Ave. I think the assessed value was way undervalued for what was actually sold, one of the car dealerships. So there is some people pay more in taxes than others, is what I'm trying to say. And it should be equal. So the equalization rate, we got to work on. I know that some of the towns, they used to raise the town tax.
So Tim, the piece that I'm talking about, this is just talking about the county tax. I'm not discussing what the town's tax rates are.
Right.
But you are correct that some of them do not have a town tax.
Right.
And some of them actually do, and this doesn't take into consideration, some of them do offset their county taxes by using a portion of their sales tax to reduce it as well.
Assessment.
Can I ask a clarification?
Yeah.
Jenny,
Wayne Daly has a question.
for the takeaway from this is if county stays with the zero increase in taxes, the impact to the people in this county is going to be contingent on the various assessed values of these towns and villages in the city. So you can't, is that what we're supposed to take away from this, that the impact of this may vary from town to town?
So the overall county-wide tax rate is decreasing, but you can't expect to see that on every town's bill. That's essentially the takeaway, that for the towns that have equalization rates that are dropping, essentially their taxable value and their full market value aren't in alignment. And so you're going to see those ones with an increase. Yes.
I would assume, but some increase. So you can't say everyone in this county, to Keith's point when I brought it up, you can't say to the public, no one will see their taxes increase.
Correct.
Some will, based on their assessed values. Is that what you're
Well, they're going to
saying?
see their rate increase.
Okay,
Yeah, we should say some may.
Right.
Right.
When there's a 0%, the increase, it's probably the number of people that would see the increase is probably negligible. Because, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jenny, that if there's a reassessment and a realignment within a town, that might then result in a change in the town relative tax levy. From, the example I always think about is in the rural areas, lakefront versus residential versus agriculture. So if you do a reevaluation, there may be a shift from how much people on lakefront versus non-lakefront versus ag. There may be a change in that mix, and that may
You are
result.
correct.
But short of that, if we do a 0% tax increase, which we're proposing, short of that reevaluation, there will not be an increase. No individual will see an increase in their tax bill. Is that correct? No. If there's no.
I'm sorry.
yes, not.
Very
Yes.
few, you're right.
Right.
You should never say all or none. I agree. I always say that too. Generally speaking, that would be a better way to say it.
Mr.
Yes,
Dennis?
generally speaking, you are correct. I would not say all or, yeah.
Good point. I'm sorry I said all. That's always confusing. I think Mr. Dennison has a question or a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Jenny, so basically with the reevaluations, because I know we went through one a few years ago and now we're still dropping. I think we're down to 96%. You almost have to continually do those about every few years, or else someone in one town with, I'm just throwing a figure out, $100,000 valued home, its taxes could be completely different than someone at the other end of the county who has the same $100,000 valued home, right?
Yes.
Oh, I hate to say this, but I kind of agree with Lattimore in a sense that we should have some sort of countywide assessment to do away with some towns being at 100%, 95, 85. That's kind of crazy when you're living in the same valued home, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's something I can look at some point. I can definitely tell you right now, I'm just trying to get through the first tax cycle.
No, and that's a really good point, Andy. And the solution to that is that there has to be action that requires a vote, a countywide vote to make that happen. This body does not have the authority to move to a countywide assessment project. There are two ways to do it, as I understand. One is every town can buy in by local decision to a kind of secede the wrong word. Give their assessment function to a countywide agency just by local decision. That's possible. The only other way to do that is a countywide referendum that says we're going to have a countywide assessment process. But either or, we cannot do it, but it's not a bad idea for exactly the reason Andy just mentioned, that there's some fundamental inequity when town to town to town, city to town. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. But we could pass a resolution encouraging that direction, or encouraging a countywide referendum. We could do that, but we can't make the decision. That's something this body may want to take up next year.
You will also have to consider that my office would need more staff.
Spoken like a two department.
My God, Jen, you've become a bureaucrat overnight. Good for you.
There's appraisal services that'll do it for the whole town.
Tim said you can buy it.
Okay. Then I just need the money for that.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I don't see any.
Good. Thank you very much. Now, Amanda, have I missed anything else?
Nope,
Okay,
we can move on.
so let us start with the business of tonight. Let's start with the county treasurer. Lynn?
Yeah, we're starting with the department's report to Ways and Means. So really the only thing to say with the two, with really the county treasurer and the finance office together. If you had looked at your budget book, you would notice that we had split the departments out. So some revenues that were budgeted in the treasurer's office prior are now budgeted in the finance office. And the staff were also split. So that is reflected in the budget. We have in front of us. One thing that I can point out is the interest earnings and the gain on investments, both of those accounts were reduced. We reduced them both each by $100,000 just due to the performance that we're having. Interest rates, as you know, are very low. And so we did lower those to get a little more in line with 2021's.
Thank you. So any questions on the treasurer or the finance office budgets? I will point out, we're gonna have to have a discussion on the salary for the treasurer. Well, it is him. So it's him or her, but we now have an election, so the treasurer's salary based upon the split of the department, reduction of the load and all this stuff. I've talked with a number of you, not everyone, but I've talked with a number who suggest that we defer that discussion until the actual budget meeting. So it's up to this body. Do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to defer it until actually we consider the budget in its totality? Anyone want to talk about it now? Yeah.
I just would like for somebody, whether it's you or somebody from staff, to get a couple of numbers from a couple other counties that are somewhat similar size and somewhat similar setup with the finance department and treasurer and things. I think that would be helpful for the body.
Okay, good point. So for when we do discuss it, probably next week or maybe at the budget hearing.
That's what I would suggest.
Okay, Amanda? Guess who's requested?
Who that
to do
person might be.
I just wonder.
Thank you.
Got it.
Great idea. Any other suggestions for Amanda to do some work?
At your own risk.
Mr. Lattimore?
In regards to looking at other counties, job description and job duties is important as to what the pay is. And, for morale purposes, I know that there's been some countywide electeds that have come in on a lower rate and then work their way up. And then I just hope that we don't have a morale problem. So hopefully you can get job description. I think it's been a moving target a little bit. So hopefully we can nail that down.
And yes, that's great. We'll look at that. But I'm curious, can you define morale problem for an elected official?
Well, I'm
I'm not sure
underpaid.
what you're talking about.
I'm underpaid.
I wonder
know that. So for Cayuga County versus Onondaga, 30 versus 15.
Yeah.
Or
Is that,
13.
no, that's my point. Is that a morale issue for you or for other electeds?
Well,
I don't know what you're
I'm
talking
just
about.
glad to work for.
Because we're not talking about
Discuss the
staff.
budget, though, right?
I'm-
What?
We're working on the budget.
We are.
Yeah,
I'm glad just to show up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So we will kind of defer that discussion then. Is that the feeling of the body? Okay. We do need to have that discussion though, so keep that in mind. Very good.
Keith,
Yes. Paul.
Is- so does that have to, should be in on Tuesday for the budget or no?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Very good. Thank you. Lynn?
The next department is the auditor. That is a part-time hourly position. And I have increased the hours in there, the salary, actually, not the hours, based on the hours that have been worked. And so that is up a little bit, the budget. The next is the real property department. The only significant change in that one was that we did have a decrease in revenue. They aren't providing the assessment services for the town of Owasco anymore. I think that was actually like the 1 year thing. They did have some decrease in corresponding expenditures. It looks like though too that are down somewhat. So overall, no big change there.
Just a quick question.
Question on that. Yeah.
So the revenue was deleted and the expenditure line equivalent to the revenue was deleted. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so it's just a wash.
Yeah, they pretty much have an overall, no big changes.
There were staff changes in the department.
No, it was
As a result?
contractual.
Okay, it's
expenses.
under a contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, continue, please.
Then the next department is civil service, and there was no significant changes there.
Great. I will take the opportunity here to say that we are in search for a new HR director that's proceeding. And I certainly hope that we will have a candidate to propose in the December meeting. I don't think we'll have it. Well, we can. I think we meet next month, but I certainly hope we have a candidate to propose in December so we can start January 1 with that done. But that's to be seen. No changes in the budget, correct?
No.
Great. Questions on that?
Just a quick question.
Yes, we have a question.
Are we still accepting applicant? Is that an open position?
Yes.
Right now that we're accepting applications for?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
As a member of legislature, you have to resign in order to be appointed to any position in the county. This will make that clear. Teasing. Trish.
I know a few people in HR. that Might be a good bet, you never know. So,
Thank you. Lynn?
The last couple of things that I was gonna go over, just because it's kind of was also where we would maybe talk about legislative contracts and a few other ones that we haven't talked about. CETA, there was an increase in the budget from 300,000 to 375,000. Cornell Cooperative Extension was an increase from 249,000 to 315,000. And the contingency account was increased from $100,000 to $200,000. So those are some of the significant changes for those accounts too.
So if we can take those in order, are there any questions on the CETA budget or increase?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Cornell Cooperative. So does that include the request for the 23,000?
No, we're going to do that next. If there are no questions on CETA, let's go on to that.
Okay.
Opinion. So here's a question about the 23,000 additional requests for a cooperative extension, and that is not included in this. That was cut. So the next thing I was going to suggest is to see if see Dan's here. If you want to address your request was for an additional 23,000. If you want to address that, what that's for, that was cut. Or is if you just stand up and say it's fine, it's cut, we're good, we'll move on.
Yeah, so the additional 23,000 is take some funding that we budgeted through the savings of no longer having the expenses of the building on 248 Grant Avenue for a half-time position to focus on environmental quality, and to make that a full-time position that would focus on environmental education, both for youth and adults throughout the community and across multiple watersheds in the county.
Okay, so this is for public education and not specifically for agriculture?
Not in the, no, not for the 23,000.
Okay. And it's in addition to some money you saved, so you're contributing out of your funds?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So are there some questions on that?
Keith?
Some would say Keith.
Ben.
Ben, sorry, forgive me.
All right. So my question, and I'll phrase it to the body, not to Dan, but if you want Dan to answer, that's your prerogative, but my question is that going to a regional system, it's also very helpful to have local staff that can be the go-between between the regional people and the local people. I want to make sure that we have that, because if we don't have the local people on the ground, then the regional aspect and what we're paying for is diminished. The value of it is diminished. So my question is that I wanted to make sure that we have enough people on the ground to make that the other money that we're adding most beneficial to our county.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you talking about the egg teams thing?
Yeah, the ag team,
Okay,
that's the regional
okay.
piece, but it's also very helpful to have local people that can make that connection between the residents of Cayuga County and that ag team.
The egg team is there to support small farms.
The ag team there to support everything. They're the experts.
But to amplify what you say, Elaine, I mean, from my perspective, and this is just personal, from my perspective, an important part of this ag team approach is to support small and mid-sized farming operations. Big farms get all the help they need. They get help from a variety. The small farmer, the mid-sized farmer, they often are left out. They're on their own. And one of the things the ag teams do is they provide a resource that they simply cannot buy or find from other sources because they don't have the resources to do it. So it's, yeah, even though it's available for everyone, but as far as I'm concerned, the thing we look at is what have you done for small and mid-sized farms? That's critically important. That's something we all want to support. I think everyone in this room wants to support small and mid-sized farms. We want to see those continue.
Yeah, I'd love to agree with you, but I also like to argue with you.
It wouldn't be a meeting if you
We all want to support the medium and small farms, but you also have to understand the big farms, they can get the help. But the help comes from people that are salesmen. And those salesmen are selling a product, so they don't,
Yeah.
they are concentrating on the product they're selling.
That's
They're
true.
not concentrating on what's available to everybody.
It pains me to say that, yeah, good point.
Thank you.
No, that's absolutely true. That's true. Mr. Ladman.
Your predecessor, Doug, would always indicate that whatever monies we give to Cornell Cooperative for soil and water, that somehow magically it multiplies by state and federal monies. Is that true with this additional?
Yeah, so this additional funding, there will be an increase in the amount of money that we get from the state because of the specifics of the formula that's written in the law for extension. I don't know exactly what that number is. Part of that is because I have to, that money gets split among the 56 extension associations across the state. But the other thing with cooperative extension is our benefits are provided through the state colleges at Cornell University. So any additional staffing, it's just the salary, and then those benefits are also, the value of those benefits is contributed.
Thank you for that explanation.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, Keith, can I ask one?
May. Andy?
Yeah, I mean, is the whole deal with the college done now? What are you saving as far as building costs this year compared to previous years? You know, are you still paying as much in rent, or, I mean, I would think you'd be saving considerably there, aren't you?
Yeah, so our savings from no longer having the cost of the building is $40,000 to $45,000 a year. Andy, depending on some of the utility costs and that. This year, we didn't fully realize that because we didn't move out until the July, so we had some of those costs for a good portion of the year so far.
So is that, a follow-up question on that? So is that why, because I noticed you said this is 23,000, but you said you would hire an environmental, whatever you call it, quality educator, whatever. You can't go get one for 23. So I assume that what you're saying is for this 23 and the savings you got 40 or 45, that comes up to 60, 65 or so. That would allow you to hire the full-time person. So it's a combination of that savings plus this additional money. Is that
Right.
accurate?
Yes,
Okay. thank
yes,
you.
and we wouldn't probably hire them at 65 to be something
We'd have to,
less than
unless you're
that.
not gonna pay them friends benefits, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that question, Andy. That was very good. That clarifies. Thank you. Other questions on this? Anyone on, oh, Trish has got one.
I guess I'll just add a quick comment, if that's okay, and then a follow-up question that Jessica Souls, I think you're on your board or board chair, reached out to me to advocate a little bit for this position as well. And my understanding is that it fits into kind of a strategic planning process that Extension has been undergoing for a while, thinking about reorganization of your work effort. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, or how you see this person working within the landscape of the environmental organizations that we do have here in the community, watershed organizations, soil and water, stuff like that. And just curious if you could expand a little bit on that, Dan.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Trish. When it comes to strategic planning, I started this position in 2019, and it was a little short strategic plan that the board had done before I started, and that was only for a 2-year time frame, which we're quickly approaching, and plus we had the pandemic in the middle of that. So some of the assumptions around that have changed. So we are working through the board with my board on a strategic plan that will hopefully have ready in the first half of 2022. To address the point on collaboration, one of the things right now is we don't have some of that capacity to work directly with a lot of the organizations. I know Doug and I work together. Doug here's from Soil and Water, and I work together quite a bit. This may be a position that can help with some education before folks are ready for actual implementation and technical assistance, where Doug's staff would then come in. There may be opportunities to collaborate with the Boston Lake Management Council or the watershed, Wasco Lake Watershed Association on things like stream sampling. Cayuga Lake is now, DEC is considering what's known as a total maximum daily load, which will regulate the amount of phosphorus entering Cayuga Lake. So working with Cayuga Lake Watershed Network, the intermunicipal organization there, will be a very important part of this position due to the number of the farms and residents that we have that are in that watershed in the county.
Other questions?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
being on the Coffee Extension Board, it was also important, like Keith had said earlier, a lot of the small and medium farms don't have the, they don't have to do the CAFOs and all that. And so a lot of the small and medium farms kind of get left out in the environmental issue. So this will also add to that opportunity to get to those smaller people also.
Mr. Latimer,
CCE Cayuga, is that part of that or is that different?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What?
That's it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear. What was that?
CCE Cayuga, is that?
Thank you. Okay.
That's it. Okay. All right, get that. Thank you.
Okay, we good? Anyone online? Very good. Contingent account. We're increasing that to provide flexibility for the next legislature. Because they need 100 to 200, and the scheme of the budget is not much. We kind of cut that in previous years because we were trying to shave the tax rate. This year, we're in a great position with that. So that gives the next legislature some little bit of breathing room. It's not a lot, frankly, but a couple $100,000 out of a $116 million budget is not a lot. But if something comes up, you're going to be glad that's there. So that's, I don't know if anyone has any questions about that.
Keith,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
just to make sure, so anything that we may want to add tonight will come later, or is it right now that we're talking?
Well, I think if no one has any questions on the stuff we've done, I think right now, do you have some, so would you like to start with some recommendations for changes?
I would. And Lynn, I'm gonna need your help on a couple of the numbers, but I'd like to offer three additions to this budget that would be increased, and I'll give you the amounts separately, but everything coming out of the tax, sales tax. So I'd like to start off, the first one would be a $50,000 bump to the soil and water, making that a total of 75,000 of the $100,000 request. And that money would come out of the sales tax and go into the soil and water budget. And I apologize, I do not have those numbers. Lynn, are you there?
Yeah, yeah.
887-304-54000.
Thank you.
Just from memory.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
it.
I have.
Okay,
So, Paul, are you saying to increase the current allocation is 700,000? You want to make it 750 or 725?
that's correct. No, 750. Which would give us a total of $75,000 increase.
It's 25 and the 10, is that what he means?
No, he's saying last year was 675. He's proposing to make it 750. He's increasing the budget by 50,000 from 700.
From the 10.
more.
Yeah.
And he's taking it from the tax levy though.
No, what is, we're actually increasing the sales tax revenue is really the way to say it. We're gonna increase the sales tax revenue.
Because it was conservative estimate.
Oh, okay.
And also, I also want to make clear, and this maybe it's appropriate to make this part of the motion or not. We've talked about this. The point of this is not to simply give Stormwater Conservation District more money. The point of this is to allow Stormwater Conservation District to increase the salaries of current employees so that they begin to approach market salary rates as one of the ways to retain and encourage and support current employees. Is that right, Paul? That's my understanding.
I was gonna get to that, but I wanted to make sure Lynn was in the numbers.
Didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, that's okay. 12 years, Keith. I'm used to it.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Second one is the cooperative extension, $23,000 increase for that position that we just talked about. The third one was a increase to Steve Lynch's planning department of $10,000 for the reason of the 1-year part-time position to be established and to be monitored to see what that takes for that CCDC position there. And then lastly, the fourth one is of the bundle is this is kind of twofold. So Capusa had 0 in their budget line, but in the CM line, I think they have a balance of $15,669.23. I'm requesting that we get $9,330.77.
I'm sorry. How about,
$25,000 in the Capusa budget.
are you good with 78 cents?
Sure, if that'll put us over the top, sure.
No sense in the budget.
Maybe
Well, in
less.
the CM line, you had the 23 cents in there, so I just wanted to be thorough because I figured Keith would come in that quarter.
Okay,
So I'd like to offer those a bundle if possible.
because we offer those as a bundle, could we have a second?
What? I'll second it, but I want to know what the total is.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Total is $92,330.
how much?
$92,330.
I missed the motion of what you're wanting to amend the budget by. That's, I
These
think,
amounts, he moves
90.
50,000 soil and water, 23,000 property extension, 10,000 planning part-time, 9,300 Capusa,
For a total of $92,330.
and all of that from sales, an increase in sales tax. Do you need those numbers, Lynn?
I have the numbers. I mean, I should probably say, I mean, for now cooperative extension, it's A 29804-54000. For the planning department, the part-time salary line is A 80201-51002. And the line that we use to budget the Capusa is contribution would be A 10144545505.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Is there one clarifying
Wait,
question?
First question though, before you need clarification. Does anyone want any of these separated in the committee as a bundle?
Well, I guess I'm good with it, just for discussion.
Okay, then we can talk about it. Good. So Elaine, you're on.
Paul, I'm just curious, the reason you picked this $9,000 amount is the intent is to try to get Capusa back to the 32.5 that it had prior? Is that what you're trying to accomplish?
Yes, because we had expended some of that money on the hometown, and then the pandemic hit, and we've been basically idle as that. And then through 8 months of no selection for our officers, I want to get the money in the budget so that hopefully we'll follow suit with the new legislature in January and make these appointments to the Capusa board and get back on track again. And the 25,000 has been a benchmark for the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, excluding the 2 years at 32.5 because of the hometown study. So that gives us a very safe start to operate at. And we've been proven diligent over the years of not going to the casino with any of that money, so.
Okay, so that does get the line to 32.5, no, 25,000.
I think 25,000. About 25,000, right, Paul?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's what I was unclear about. Okay.
Mr. Peters has a question.
Thank you. Mr. Vitale tried to help me with this, but I'm still lost. So we are, is it the expenditure line that we're talking about? Help me out when you say that it's coming from the sales tax.
We're increasing the sales tax revenue that we'll expect to get next year.
So this will in no way, shape, or form have an impact on the tax levy.
Right, not the property tax, right, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we should clarify here, because it's a very good point, Mr. Peters. That the sales tax, this is all a subject of kind of opinion and feel and projection. But the sales tax projection, based upon what we've been experiencing the last couple of years, is conservative, realistic. And I think that increasing it by $100,000 or $200,000 still makes it conservative, realistic. I mean, it's not crazy. I think Lynn and I have talked about this. It's going to be a surprise if we don't make the sales tax projection. Anything can happen. This is all the future, but it's not crazy stuff. We're not playing with numbers. We're not doing smoke and mirrors here.
No, I know, that's pretty conservative.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to insult you.
She used the word.
Yeah.
No, I think we should see what happens. We need to be more acrimonious.
I'll work on my powers.
Okay, are there any more questions or comments on this motion? Excuse me, Mr. Lattimore.
Are you bundling all of them?
Yeah. He moved them as a bundle, yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes, he did.
Trish had a question.
Thank you. God, Trish, you need to sit where he is. Make him over here, because then he makes it easier for me.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't see Tim read.
Oh, gee, that would be terrible.
Teacher's pet.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask a few questions on the planner position. Paul, you said that's to fund it for a year, or is that to be
That's the
ongoing?
part-time, that's the part-time position that was Steve had asked about for the CCDC bookkeeping or whatever. I don't know if I have the right title there.
Yeah. Is the intention for that to be a transitional position or an ongoing position in the county budget that we fund?
I think Steve, if he's on here, he can answer that question for you.
Yeah, Steve.
I think at this point, it's looked at to be transitional. Of course, that will come up when the fiscal year 23 budget comes up in August, September of 2022. But at this point, it's really a way to try to assess. I was hopeful that it would be the 12,000 that we asked for. It will mean less hours, but to answer your question, I think that answers your question.
And then my second question related to Kapusa, Paul, is there a plan for use of those funds for next year? Are you seeking just to have a placeholder for to support activities that arise during the year?
The latter, just for what's to come. You know, we think there's a lot of activity, so, you know, again, it's been very difficult over the years to get much more money than we got 32,005 without having some kind of foolproof plan. That there is none foolproofs, but so that gives us a start. I mean, if something hooks onto the wagon early in the year or mid-season, we have to come back in front of the ledge to ask for something else, we may, but this, we're anticipating this will get us up and get us started anyways.
I guess I would just add a final comment before I stop stop is that with Capusa, I do feel like there's a lot of potential there. And at some point, we need to have a serious conversation about that. And is it something that we want to have operating in this county? What does it look like? What does the staffing plan look like? What's the potential of that organization? I think there's a lot we can do with Capusa. I'm not sure we have an answer right now as to what that staffing plan might look like, but there's opportunity there. So I hope that in the next year, we can have those conversations with the new body.
Thank you. I hope we get the support going forward after the first of the year to keep it stimulated.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Dennison has a question. Andy?
Mr.
Yeah,
Jennison.
thanks. Yes, thanks. The other thing I want to say is because I've had a couple people out here ask me this question because I just think in the future, we need to look at, we have a Cayuga County Economic Development Agency, CEDA, and we have a county department called Planning and Economic Development. Is there any overruns there? Can we do this with one? I mean, I've had people ask me that question, and I basically told them I've asked the same question. Have we ever really sat down and looked at that? Can it all be done one or the other, as opposed to having two different, basically taxpayer funded departments in the county?
Andy, I feel, after being on that board 8 years, I feel that Capusa, it would be great to see planning and Capusa, join. There's certain things Capusa can do, and we can be an advantage to a lot of different things there. But, CEDA, I mean, it all has to be looked at one more time, I think, in the future. The board going forward and the ones to follow after that. I think, the people have to sit down and look at the potential of what those three things can do. And then you may get some buy-in on helping, because there's a certain amount of speculation that goes with all those. So if you're to, prevail with some larger or bigger things or getting a piece of the pie. But I agree that I think they should sit down and take a hard look and see where maybe you could hitch your wagon to one part of each. So.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think that's a good comment and a good question. And in my mind, the decision was made prior to maybe any of us being on this body, certainly prior to me. The decision was made to go with a separate economic development group. And one of the things that may be the case, our planning department in economic development now is planning economic development, but most of the work they do is planning. And it could be that just is now a misnomer, that it should simply be planning, but that's something to look at for the future, I think. But it's a good point. It creates confusion among the public. Why are you paying for all well, it's not really double paid, it's different functions. So let's pass that on to the next legislature because it's easy to do. Y'all's job. Mr. Lattimore.
To go to Annie's question, I sat on the boards of both the city and the county planning boards. So there is some synergy between the city and the county. The city is part of the county, and hopefully, we can put less confusion to the people who want to come here and deal, and that's why CEDA was born. But I just want to say to everybody, I mean, this is a blueprint. The budget is a blueprint. If all of a sudden we do have an economic development, like all of a sudden we have to build a milk plant. I mean, previous boards, all of a sudden we had to come up with $1 million to really retrofit our industrial sites. So as projects come, this board's going to have to either put in new high-powered wires or whatever it needs to have. So it's just a blueprint, and it changes as development happens. But one thing I would like to say to CETA and our planning board is to make sure that we have grant writers or associate with somebody who can do that. We had Veladas at one time. Partner with the private sector people so that if for some reason we can double down on the monies that are coming down from the feds, we should grab as much as that to do projects, and we need grant writing ability. And we might have to add a couple positions in order to get our share of the money that's being printed out of Washington. This board can't print money, but the feds seem to be printing a lot of it right now, so we should be gearing up to receive some of that and have projects ready to go to put them in the ground, so.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this particular?
I'd like to call the question.
Question's been called. Anyone object? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Thank you. I'm sorry, what?
Thank you.
He said thank you.
Are there any other modifications to the budget? Ms. Daly?
I have one to bring forward tonight. I'm asking consideration to increase a part-time line in the county health department's budget. It's a part-time in the early intervention program. It's line A 40451-51002 to include $14,000 for the continuation of a part-time early intervention service coordinator through part of the year of 2022 to address the fact that the one of the 4 full-time service coordinators was just recently hired. And I think it will take a period of time for that position to be up and fully functional. And this would add to their ability to keep a current trained part-time person working within the department. And if that's acceptable, we would add the $14,000 and take the, make that from also an increase in our sales tax revenue.
And that is for what portion of the
It would be until, it's about half of the full-time, or half of a full-time, part-time. So it'd probably be half of the year.
Okay,
probably
fine.
through June or so.
That was my question.
Yeah.
We don't have to have the dates.
Right.
That's what I was wondering. So it's more or less a half-year transitional support to
Correct.
continue the part-time position. Okay, very good. Understand.
Paul seconded
Is there a
that.
second?
Paul.
Paul
Thank you.
second.
I got a question.
You have a question? Ask it, please.
Sorry. Again, not from the levy.
No,
Sales
this is all
On the
adding
revenue
another
side.
increasing sales tax projection in our budget by 14,000 from what's already been in there.
So are we good? We're good?
We're good.
In the margin of error here?
Yeah.
Give or take. But
You had said, no, she had said that she presented the budget, that we're doing pretty well.
I know, yeah.
So this isn't
No,
unrealistic.
he just wants to know, and that's his job, to ask these questions.
Yeah,
Elaine's gonna go out and buy a new pair of shoes.
that's right. I mean,
I'm sorry to say, you know.
You're a bull.
Yes. That's the- Okay, so we have a motion and a second on this. Is there any discussion? Does everyone understand what we're doing here? It's important that we not do vote. Trish has a question on this.
Just a comment that I know this is meant to be a transitional person to get the new person up and running. But I also do know Lori presented numbers that they're up for the children needing an early intervention services in that community. I think we need to keep an eye on it.
Absolutely, and there's, and to me, Trish, there's the ability mid-half year, if things haven't stabilized in the program, to come back and ask for the continuation of that funding. And that would be a very appropriate use if it's supported to come out of contingency. So I think this is a fair start and a reasonable approach to having them have the ability to sort of figure out where they're going to be mid-year.
Okay, any other discussion? We can vote then, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you. So are there any other suggestions, proposals to change the budget before we send it forward to the full legislature for discussion?
Yeah,
Mr. Peepus.
I want to table for 10 more of these. Slow things down. So for, help me out again. With the soil and water amendment that we made, does that take them to the full?
No, it does not.
So-
It takes them to the amount that they requested in order to up the salaries.
25 short.
Well, 25 short of their request, but it provides the full amount that they requested in order to bring the salaries up to what they identified as kind of market level.
Thank you.
Can I ask a general question, Keith?
Mr. Jennison has a question. Yes, go ahead, Andy.
This is kind of for Lynn, I guess, too. I'm curious, okay, with everything that's gone on the past couple of years, I mean, last year, I know I asked this same question. I wanted to know if we could be at 0%. I was told last year we couldn't fund balance all this. Well, this year we are. So with everything going on, you know, businesses, individuals financially hurting, the way our economy's going, we've lost, correct me if I'm wrong, 6,000 to 7,000 people in this county in the last census. How much would we have to take out of the fund balance to be at a -1%? Actually be the county that said, hey, come live here instead of leaving. Because if that's not huge on our fund balance, and we know there's probably going to continue to be federal monies thrown at us and state monies, which I wish people would, you know, realize that's still your money when they're throwing it back at you. So how about we give back a little something?
Andy, I hate to agree with you, but I brought that up last week and I got nowhere with it.
Well, I don't know, that it's an interesting idea. I don't know what the mechanism is to have a less than zero tax increase. Do you, Lynn?
We have to cut, right?
Well, I think you would just reduce what's in the budget for the property
No,
tax.
no,
levy.
no, it's budgeting is easy.
Right.
What do? How do you write a check to everyone? Because that's what it would require, right?
No, you just would be a lower tax levy for this year. Your tax bill would go down more.
Oh, I see.
That's what
I
he's
see.
just saying, reduce
Right.
the taxes.
Reducing it by 1%.
Increase is $400,000, right, roughly?
Yeah,
I mean, that math is pretty easy, 400 or so. So it'd be an additional 400 to $450,000 draw on the fund balance, right? Roughly.
Which,
But then-
where, I guess my question to Lynn was, where does that put us in that so-called range that we're supposed to stay in? I mean, because I asked the same thing last year and we couldn't do 0 last year. So I'm wondering if we're doing 0 this year, do we have the ability to do that extra 400,000?
Yes.
You know, Andy, when we were all talking about this whole issue about every year I've heard, oh my gosh, you can't really ever have a zero tax increase because expenses for the county go up all the time. And you don't want to put yourself in a position where you don't raise taxes and then at some point you have to do so. And what I was told is that, you know, this year is a little bit different because primarily what's changed is the sales tax revenue. Is that, I mean, it would be risky to, I don't want to be part of having something so low that then in 2 years, we end up having to go up to the tax cap just to make ends meet. And this is risky enough, but I think what I was told is, you know, kind of the federal funds have come in, that's a big deal. The sales taxes performed far better than we ever thought, and it seems to be sustained. So this might be the year to do 0, but to get into less than 0.
I mean, one of the things
I don't know.
it was,
matter?
No, yeah.
Lynn has a comment.
yeah, I was just gonna say that, you know, one of the things that, you know, I mentioned, but maybe didn't highlight was that, you know, we were able to drop the retirement expenditures in the budget, which is totally controlled by New York State, whatever they're gonna require us to contribute. And I'm just checking the figure, but it was about $700,000. And that's kind of very unusual. So I mean, that could go right back up
Right.
again. So that was always, the health insurance went up 5.9%, which was
Not
very
as-
modest, but those are not gonna stop going up. One thing to keep in your mind too, we're certainly discussing about a building. And, I was here the year that we had to add a new $1 million expenditure when we built the 911 towers, because that became a debt payment. So, that fund balance, you kind of have to think in your head that it's gonna help to smooth when we do something like that. When we have a large expenditure hitting, that would be a time to be able to probably take more, so we're not having to ask our taxpayers to have a big increase to be able to smooth it. So that's just kind of
Right.
my 2 cents, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that the question is a good one, and it's a legitimate one. But it's the responsibility of this body to look not just to this year and next year, but to year after year after year after. And that's what Lynn's getting at. We have an opportunity now, because of the confluence of the things, that we can say to people, it's been hard. This year's been hard. It's been hard on you, it's been hard on us, it's been hard on everyone. And we're in a position now to make it less hard for you in terms of the tax levy. However, if we reduce that too much, then what we're doing is next year, the year after, when the market doesn't do so well, and the mandatory contributions to retirement go back up, they will sooner or later go back up. When the sales tax goes down, because remember, sales tax is the benefits from inflation. None of us want to see inflation, but it benefits our budget. So we get what we want, and inflation goes down, the sales tax goes down. So then we're in a pickle. And on and on and on and on. This budget is a function of a combination of mandated expenditures and optional decisions that we make, but many of them are beyond our control. And we need to be very careful not to respond to the moment in a way that will make our to not use a cliche, but there's some truth in this, our children and grandchildren pay for it. And so it's a legitimate thing to consider, but it's something to consider very cautiously. My soapbox thing. No more. Trish. Yeah, sorry. This is not good. You need to sit somewhere else, Dan, so I can see it. Yeah, hit me in the head. Damn, Trish.
I just had a question and a comment, I guess. My question is regarding the central budget that we have in here. How does that number get in there? And I assume is it, we have a regional contract, we're part of a contract with Central for
Yes.
services. And have we had any conversations with Central recently about what they're doing with how they're looking at their transportation? And there's a lot of money out there for infrastructure and vehicles, and the transportation routes in this county are abysmal, especially in rural areas.
Yeah, they're on that.
Yeah, it's a huge.
Yeah, we have a member on that board, and I'm not sure, who is our board member? I don't remember. I used to know.
Which board?
Central. That's the person that we need to go to, because we have no control over that, but we
Yeah,
do have an appointee to that. And so whoever that is, that's,
I just wanted to put it out there.
That's a good
I think-
point.
I mean, the funding looks like it's been relatively flat.
Yeah, that's unless I'm mistaken, that's a percentage that we have to. pay.
Yeah, we get like, a quarterly bill
We have no choice
and we
over
pay
that.
it, so.
What we do have, though, is our representative on that board
Right.
is on the board to represent our interests. So you should find out who that is. And I would suggest that you get directly in touch with them, not as a body, not as, you can speak for the body, but it's a good point to say as a legislator, I want to know
Well, I just
what's
think-
being done.
Yeah, we should definitely have some conversations.
Yeah.
About,
It might be Darlene DeRosa Lattimore.
It might be. I'm trying to remember.
I don't know whether she was an appointee of here, but I know
Yes.
she's on that board.
Oh, if she is, she's ours.
Or she was, I don't know whether she's.
I don't know if she still is or not, but we have an appointee to that board.
Okay.
Now, Central did get a pile of money from the federal government, so.
And that's Chris's point. What part of that money is coming to Cayuga County?
None.
I don't know. Good point, Chris.
My other comment was, just to pick back up on the Soil and Water Conservation District budget, because I am on that board, and we did talk about the budget, that I do think there's going to be a capacity issue at Soil and Water in terms of going after a lot of this infrastructure money that's out there and a lot of this environmental money that's out there to do projects on the ground. For water quality, for stormwater runoff, for the parks and trails, for highway. They're all over the county working on projects and supporting local government. And, you know, with the staff that they have, they are very, very efficient and they do a lot. And I just don't want to see us pigeonhole ourselves in terms of the money that we can bring into this county for some of these key priorities that we all share, like drinking water quality, by not having the staff resources that we need in that district to do the on the ground work. And I just want to make that comment that I think it's something we should be aware of and going into next year, thinking about providing some potential resources in addition what we've already done tonight. I know that they're one of the highest funded districts in the state, but I think there's good reason for that. We're one of the top agricultural counties in the state, and we have a lot of potential with our ag industry right now to grow and develop it, and soil and water play a key role in that. So,
Thank you for that comment. And, you know, the takeaway from that is that if Soil and Water has a plan that requires county support now to implement, they need to develop that plan and present it here. I would underscore that it's not this body's position, responsibility, or authority to speak for our partner agencies. That's true for Soil and Water, it's true for Cooperative Extension, it's true for CEDA, it's true for everyone else. That we respond to their request. We do not create a program for them and ask and do it that way. It's got to work that way. It's a good point. There's lots to be done. Mr. Lattimore.
I suggested in our caucus today that we invite all our electeds, Senator Schumer, Gillibrand, Gatco, all of them, and have a breakfast or something and tell them exactly what they're going to do for Cayuga County.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. You know what? You know, last time that was done,
I think I was around. Yeah.
I was chair of the Cayuga County Legislature, and I did that.
I think we did it before.
It's time to do it. It's time to do it again, perhaps.
Yeah, it's time to ask them, what are you going to do for Cayuga County?
Mr. Chairman, will you entertain a motion to adjourn?
I will. Well, is there any other business for Ways and Means?
I'll
For the
second
budget?
the motion.
I did not recognize the motion. Is there any other business for Ways and Means?
Did we vote on CEDA?
Didn't vote the resolution.
Which one?
We're gonna call a new meeting for that.
Which one's that?
We're gonna open.
The Ways and Means recommendations on the 2022 budget
Yeah.
officer's tentative budget.
Okay, so could I have a motion to move to the full body recommendations of the Ways and Means Committee from the 2022 budget? Moved, second? Second, on favor? Any opposed?
What just happened?
We just.
It's just the,
Formally said we'll-
Moved to
as a
adjourn.
whole, all of the changes.
Could I have a
that
motion
Ways and
to
Means.
adjourn?
Yes.
Second. On favor? You're adjourned.
You're just
Now-
we're sneaking something by you.
Yes. It's easy to do, you know. So, Madam Chair, are you on the line?
No, she's actually asked, can you fill in for her?
No, she told me she thought she would be here.
She will not be.
Okay,
Oh, I was gonna get all tried.
So what do you want?
Let's do it right now. It
Right
shouldn't
now,
take
we're
within
gonna,
seconds.
do we have a quorum?
I
for
don't I
the-
don't even need to be up there, do I?
I mean, you
Oh, God
can.
damn, Chris, go.
Come on.
This is your moment of
This
glory.
is your
man.
It's my
moment.
time to shine. I was gonna wear a suit.
Are we staying on here? Or do we have to get into a different thing?
No, we're staying on here, Andy.
So you got
Legislative meetings.
Chris, open the hood.
Sales fine.
I'm working. We call the meeting to order at 6:55.
All right, I'll do roll call. Tucker Whitman is excused. Andy Dennison.
No, I left.
All right. Ben Vitale,
Here.
Chris Petrus,
Here.
Paul Pinkney, Keith Batman,
Here.
Hans Petcher,
Here.
Mark Strong,
Here.
Heidi Nightingale. Here. Elaine Daly. Here. Trisha Kerr. Here. Timothy Lattimore,
Present.
Michael Didio. He's not here. Ryan Foley.
Here.
And Aileen is excused.
All set?
Yep.
Outstanding. So at this time, I'll accept a nomination for Ledge 1, fixing the day and notice of public hearing of the local law repealing local law number 5 of 2014 and establishing the position of Commissioner of DSS and Director of Community Services.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Batman and a second by Mrs. Daly. Any discussion on the resolution?
Can I just say one thing? If this is going on YouTube, should it be put up so people could actually read what
It is.
the,
You want to see the local law?
well, I did, yeah, I mean, I just think if it's gonna be where the public can view it, they ought to be able to see it, that's all.
It is also on the county website, Andy.
Oh, okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Outstanding. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Motion by Mr. Vitale, second by Mr. Batman. All in favor?
Aye.
And I love this thing. Bye.
Nice for.
You know, I'm simple.
Leave the hammer there, baby.
Good job.